the year 1534, England did not feel as though it stood on the edge of rupture. There were no fires in the streets, no visible panic, no sense of imminent collapse. The king was married, the court functioned, the documents were filed. Henry VIII was 42 years old. He had ruled for nearly a quarter century. He was neither mad nor isolated. He was surrounded by clerks, bishops, jurists, and witnesses. What would later be remembered as brutality had not yet acquired that name. At the time, it appeared orderly. This record is not concerned with Henry as a man. It is concerned with the structure that made his private life legible to the state. A system in which marriage was not intimacy, but jurisdiction. In which union was not affection, but authorization. That system did not announce itself violently. It unfolded through language, through seals, through precedent. The danger did not reside in execution. It resided in how quietly the conditions for execution were normalized. This matters because England did not collapse under Henry, it learned. If power could regulate marriage, it could regulate succession. If succession could be revised, continuity could be managed. And if continuity could be managed, stability no longer required restraint. This is how governance enters the body. If you value the historical record, subscribe to Whispers of History. The first marriage had already failed before it ended. Catherine of Aragon remained alive. She remained lawful in memory. But law, once rewritten, does not require consensus. The annulment did not rupture the kingdom. It clarified authority. Marriage, in this moment, ceased to be a personal bond. It became an instrument for validating lineage, a mechanism for determining which bloodlines would be permitted to continue. The paperwork was exhaustive. The language was precise. No violence was required. Anne Boleyn entered this structure not as a victim, but as a function. Her value was conditional. Her position was provisional. The court did not treat her as irreplaceable. It treated her as necessary until she was not. This distinction mattered, because necessity invites review, and review invites revision. There was no sudden shift when the accusations appeared. They were recorded calmly. They followed established procedure. Adultery was not merely moral failure, it was treason. Not because of passion, but because it threatened continuity. The charges were not imaginative, they were administrative. Once the system learned it could correct marriage retroactively, it no longer feared error. Error could be resolved. Anne's removal did not destabilize the institution of marriage. It refined it. The execution was brief. The transition was not. A new marriage followed. Then another, then another. Each repetition taught the system something. That a queen could be elevated quickly. That she could be removed efficiently. That affection did not interrupt procedure. No edict declared this policy permanent. It did not need to. Precedent performed the work. Marriage became a corridor through which women passed, one at a time. The corridor did not remember them. This was not cruelty misunderstood. It was governance practiced without sentiment. The court adjusted. The clergy complied. The population observed. No rebellion followed. No moral reckoning interrupted the process, because nothing appeared chaotic. By the time England reached its third execution, the system no longer reacted, it anticipated. Marriage had become reversible, and once a bond can be reversed, it ceases to restrain power. It serves it. The kingdom slept through this transition, not because it was deceived, but because the transformation was quiet. No revolution announces itself as administration, and administration, when successful, does not require belief. It requires compliance. The ledger remained open. By the late 1530s, Henry VIII stood at the center of a court that no longer resembled a family of nobles, but a living apparatus of surveillance. Marriages were not celebrated as private vows. They were processed as transactions. Courtiers learnt that the king's gaze did not fall only on foreign treaties and border forts. It followed dinners, glances, shared walks in gardens. A joke spoken in the wrong corridor might reach a secretary's ear, then a council table, then the king's temper. In this atmosphere, love did not disappear. It simply learned to whisper. The legal pillar tightened first. After Anne Boleyn's death, Parliament did not merely record a queen's fall. It codified categories of guilt. High treason now included imagining the king's death, doubting the legitimacy of his marriages, or foreseeing a different heir than the one Henry named. Words became dangerous. Thoughts, if confessed, became lethal. The statutes did not shout. They spoke in dry phrases of allegiance, supremacy, and succession. Yet behind every clause lay the same logic. A wife who failed in obedience, fidelity, or fertility could be reclassified from consort to traitor without changing the ink that named her queen. Within this framework, Jane Seymour appeared less as a romantic answer and more as a corrective adjustment. She was quiet where Anne had been sharp, yielding where Anne had argued, orthodox where Anne had challenged. Her rise demonstrated that the system did not punish all wives equally. It rewarded the model it preferred. A woman who bore a son, Edward, and died before she could become inconvenient. Jane's brief queenship showed the machine at its smoothest. No trial, no public disgrace, no rupture. Her death in childbirth sealed her in memory as the good wife, but that goodness was defined by her perfect fit within the structure, loyalty, submission, and the delivery of a male heir without later conflict. Henry's council refined its instruments as his marriages shifted. Household ordinances regulated access to the king's private rooms, restricting who might approach him and when. Gentlemen of the Privy Chamber, sworn to silence, monitored which ladies spoke with which men. The same administrative mind that calculated wool exports now tracked the movement of bodies through palace galleries. Domestic life became a series of controlled encounters. Feasts were arranged, seating by seating, masks paired dancers by design. Nothing in the court's social life remained neutral. Affection could be interpreted as conspiracy. Distance could be taken as disloyalty. Economy, as a pillar, underwrote all of this. The dissolution of the monasteries redirected immense wealth from religious houses into the royal coffers and the hands of favored nobles. New men, enriched by monastic lands, owed their position to Henry's favor. Their gratitude was practical. They supported his marital decisions because their fortunes depended on his will. When a queen fell, her household was broken up and its officers reassigned. Ladies-in-waiting shifted to new service. Stewards, chaplains, and grooms found themselves attached to other patrons. Every execution rippled through payrolls and property lists, teaching the lesson that security lay not in personal loyalty to a queen, but in submission to the larger system. Religion reinforced this lesson without shouting. The English Church, now under royal supremacy, adjusted its teaching to match the king's history. Sermons praised obedience to the sovereign as a Christian duty. Official homilies framed Henry as God's chosen instrument, entrusted with purifying both doctrine and household. Priests who had once prayed for Catherine now prayed for Anne, then Jane, then Anne of Cleves, then Catherine Howard, then Catherine Parr, each name inserted into liturgy as if the altar itself were learning to adapt. The pattern was clear. The sanctity of marriage lay not in permanence, but in alignment with royal policy. Slavery, as understood in distant colonies, had not yet taken its full English form, but unseen labor already sustained this order. Servants, wet nurses, scribes, grooms, and messengers bore the weight of enforcing intimacy's rules. A maid who carried a folded note might unknowingly transport the evidence that would condemn her mistress. A clerk who copied a legal formula into a bill of attainder could transform a queen into a traitor with a steady hand and no raised voice. Their work did not announce itself as cruelty. It appeared as duty, as routine, as the proper functioning of royal service. Fear, by this stage, was no longer a sharp shock. It was an administrative climate. Courtiers did not live in constant terror of sudden violence. They lived in continual awareness that every action could be interpreted inside a fixed logic. A misplaced confidence, an incautious remark about succession, a private complaint about a queen could be drawn into the machinery if noticed at the wrong moment. The price of remaining untouched was simple. Internalize the rules and move within them as naturally as breathing. Spectacle hovered above all of this as the visible face of power. Weddings, coronations, progressions, and executions formed a continuous visual script. Each queen's entry into London, cloaked in cloth of gold and welcomed by pageants, taught the crowd to see marriage as national ritual. Each carefully staged death bull and sword struck in silence. Catherine Howard hurried to the block taught that withdrawal of royal favor flowed along the same ceremonial lines. The populace did not see random cruelty. It saw a pattern. Elevation, scrutiny, judgment, removal, and replacement. By the end of the 1530s, the system no longer depended on Henry's moods alone. It had its own inertia. Councillors like Cromwell refined it. Courtiers adapted to it. Clergy justified it. Servants carried it out. Love in this world did not vanish, but it ceased to be a private refuge. To love a king, to marry under his shadow, or to attach oneself to a queen was to step into a structure where affection, loyalty, and desire were processed through law, religion, and policy. In such a system, was death an anomaly, simply one of the accepted outcomes? In 1540, the air in Westminster Hall carried the scent of fresh parchment as Parliament assembled under Henry's watchful eye. Anne of Cleves arrived by proxy marriage, her portrait promising alliance with German Protestants against Catholic France and Spain. The union dissolved within months, not by blade, but by legal nullity, consummation denied, kinship too close. This was the system demonstrating flexibility. Love unrequired when diplomacy shifted, a queen reclassified as sister by Act of Parliament, her dowry retained as goodwill. Henry did not break her. The machinery adjusted her status, intact and exiled to a comfortable estate. Economy deepened as pillar, fueling the structure's endurance. Monastic dissolution yielded £1.3 million, lands redistributed to create a class of gentry beholden to crown patents. These new landowners staffed local justices, enforced marital oaths, collected fines from illicit unions. A noble's wealth now traced to Henry's grant. Disloyalty risked attainder, estates reverting to treasury. Catherine Howard's rise illustrated this flow. Her uncle Norfolk, restored by Howard fortunes tied to royal favour, positioned her as fertility asset. Marriage contracts specified jointures, but royal annulment clauses ensured reversibility. Love entered ledgers, jewels pawned, warships auctioned upon disgrace. The system monetized intimacy, turning failed queens into fiscal footnotes. Religion solidified next, its doctrines recalibrated without schism's noise. The 1539 Act of 6 Articles mandated transubstantiation, celibate clergy punishing heresy with burning or hanging. Marriage sermons shifted pulpits, taught wifely submission as Leviticus command, royal unions as divine Bishops like Gardiner enforced 5 visitation articles, quizzing parish registers for bastardy or bigamy. Henry's Great Bible, chained in churches from 1539, opened to Proverbs 31. The virtuous woman builds her house, but folly tears it down. Clergy internalized the pattern. Pray for current queen, adapt when she fell. No priest questioned succession's cost. Excommunication now treasonous under supremacy oath. Faith became administrative, aligning heaven's will to Whitehall's. Bureaucracy expanded its reach, invisible scribes multiplying. Cromwell's 1540 reforms centralized exchequer audits. Privy Council minutes logged queenly expenditures, pregnancies tracked via physician depositions. Howard's household numbered 140, each servant sworn, movements charted in daybooks. Informers embedded Francis Derham's premarital letters surfaced via routine inventory. Attainder bills passed seamlessly, 400 words standardizing guilt, adultery enumerated, witnesses pre-vetted, paper ensured continuity. Norfolk's impeachment followed Cromwell's, recycling administrators. Love's evidence filed alphabetically, A for adultery, B for Boleyn precedents. Fear permeated a steady current, not storm. Courtiers navigated by ritual gifts, proffered, access purchased via intermediaries. A misplaced glance at table drew notes to Lord Chamberlain. Silence followed inquiry. The 1541 attainder for Howard listed 17 counts, but underlying was systemic. Failure to produce heir, whispers of past lovers threatening bloodline purity. Nobles attended executions as duty, faces blank, hoods drawn. Fear rationalized obedience. Better serve the machine than fuel it. What did courtiers whisper in antechambers? That survival meant anticipating the king's needs before voiced. Slavery's shadow lengthened through bound service. Palace underservants, laundresses, seamstresses, pages scrubbed bloodied scaffolds, mended veils for next bride. Indentured to households, they witnessed confessions extracted in still rooms, relayed via sealed missives. No freedom petitioned. Royal warrant bound them tighter than irons. Howard's fall dispersed 200 soulsmaids resworn, grooms to new masters. Unseen labor normalized peril. A girl's testimony sealed a queen's fate. Her quill dipped in routine. Law iterated, precedents compounding. 1542 attainder, acts barred pardons for Howard kin, estates forfeit. Marriage barriers tightened, Levitical degrees expanded, pre-contracts voidable by council decree. Adultery statutes quantified. To witnesses, carnal knowledge proven. The system processed queens as cases. Boleyn treasonous. Clever's contract fall. Howard adulterous. Each ruling built corpus, judges citing prior scaffolds. Spectacle framed these turns, public processions underscoring order. Howard's 1541 London entry, pageants lauding chastity, contrasted her 1542 block crowds, silent, tower bell tolling, measured. Executions calendared like feasts, announcements via heralds. Marriage masks at York Place paired symbolically, virtue triumphant until rewritten. By 1543, pillars converged seamless. Catherine Parr wed Henry, her intellect cloaked in devotion, surviving by navigating eddies. System no longer reacted. It anticipated, pregnancies monitored, alliances audited, whispers intercepted. Love persisted, but channeled. Vows conditional, embraces witnessed. Was this machinery flawless, or did faint cracks appear in administrative polish? In 1543, Catherine Parr knelt in the royal chapel at Whitehall, her fingers tracing the edge of a prayer book as Henry's physicians hovered nearby. She had nursed the king through ulcerated legs and melancholy, her words a balm of scripture and counsel. Yet counsel whispers reached his ear, her Protestant leanings, her circle's quiet critiques of royal policy. No blade fell. Instead, the system paused, recalibrated. Arrest warrants drafted, then burned by Henry's hand. Parr survived not by innocence, but by the machinery's capacity for selective mercy when utility outweighed risk. Economy anchored deeper, its ledgers unyielding. By mid-decade, monastic spoils had transformed gentry into royal dependents. 2/3 of England's land shifted hands via crown grant. Justices of the peace, enriched by abbey farms, enforced marital conformity, bigamy fined, bastardy penalized via poor law levies. Parr's jointure, modest at £3,000 yearly, tied her kin to obedience. Norfolk's heirs land poor, post-Howard attainder, petitioned restitution through wifely virtue. Failed unions yielded profit. Cleves dowry retained, Howard jewels auctioned. Love's ledger balanced heirs against assets, Sedwards, tutors funded by dissolved chantries, ensuring succession's fiscal security. Religion evolved as controlled doctrine, its pillars rigid yet adaptive. The 1543 King's Book prescribed wifely obedience as divine ordinance. Echoing Ephesians, wives submit as church to Christ. Pulpits disseminated via injunctions. Vicars quizzed on sermons, aligning queens with providence. Parr authored prayers or meditations, framing Henry's marriages as God's forge for true faith. Bishops like Bonner patrolled via articles, flagging illicit unions as popish remnants. Supremacy, oath-bound clergy. Dissenters like Lambert burned at Paul's cross. Spectacle underscoring marital fidelity's theological weight. Faith processed queens. Boleyn, reformer fallen. Seymour orthodox risen. Parr survivor by scriptural alignment. Bureaucracy proliferated, its forms standardized. Privy Council registers ballooned. 1544 entries, logged Parrs, household audits, physician reports on royal potency. Cromwell's successors, like Paget, indexed alliances. Cleves betrothal clauses, voided by non-consummation. Affidavit. Servants deposed, routinely maids catalogued Parrs, herbal remedies, confessors her bedtime readings. Attainder precedents streamlined. 22 clauses for Howard recycled. Witnesses cross-examined via Star Chamber protocol. Paper immortalized peril. Every queen's correspondence filed, searchable by scribe teams. Fear circulated as ambient order, courtiers attuned to its signals. A glance lingered too long at table. A groom relayed it upward. Survival demanded preemption gifts to Chamberlain secured silence. Alliances vetted via informal council nods. Parr navigated by deference, withdrawing books before searches. Nobles attended progressions warily, progresses doubling as loyalty. Toursvilles inspected for bastard lineages. Fear rationalized, obeyed the form, evade the fault. Did shadows in galleries carry more than candlelight? Slavery's unseen strata thickened, bound hands executing intimate edicts. Pages ferried sealed packets between bedchambers. Laundresses laundered bloodied linens from miscarriages, stitching veils for fresh brides. Indentured to life service, they endured royal progresses hauling trunks, scrubbing in floors slick with spilled sacramental wine. Par's fall averted, dispersed no household. Instead, maids were sworn to silence, their testimonies banked for future need. Labor normalized the cycle. Witness a queen's whisper, seal her fate with routine quill. No revolt stirred. Duty dulled blades. Law compounded, statutes layering like stone. 1544 Laws of Wales Act integrated border customs, mandating marital records, uniform pre-contracts registered, affinities barred, adultery trials quantified, 3 acts proven, 2 witnesses. Par's reprieve cited equity royal prerogative tempered statute, corpus built. Boleyn's incest precedent barred Howard lovers. Cleves nullity voided Cleves kin claims. Marriage as contract, dissolvable by convocation assent, headship supreme. Spectacle, orchestrated continuity, rituals visible and inexorable. Par's 1543 wedding, low-key amid war taxes, contrasted Howard's pageant crowds trained to cheer elevation, hushed dissent. Progresses through 1544 showcased Edward, heir paraded as system's fruit. Executions rarefied to high treason only. Coronations abbreviated, but Tower processions persisted new. Queens inbound, old outbound via river mist. By 1546, Henry's frame weakened, yet pillars hummed autonomous. Parr published lamentation, subtly guiding doctrine while council eyed her circle. System internalized, love vetted by lineage, desire by decree. Catherine survived. Others filed as precedents. Exhaustion whispered in legis treasury, strained by wars, heirs frail. Did the machinery sense its own friction? In January 1547, candles burned low in the royal bedchamber at Whitehall as Henry VIII lay dying. The king, who had once ridden in tournaments and hunted for days, now struggled for breath, his leg bandaged, his body heavy, his speech intermittent. Around him moved not grieving intimates, but functionaries. Courtiers whispered in doorways. Councillors calculated in side rooms. Servants monitored who entered and who left. Even at his deathbed, Henry was not only a man in pain, he was the central node of a system that needed to pass itself on without rupture. The philosophical core of that system had not changed. Kingship existed to preserve order through succession. Marriage existed to produce and protect heirs. Everything else, affection, companionship, even piety, remained secondary. By the time Henry's eyes closed, this idea had hardened into habit. No councillor needed to restate it. No statute needed to repeat it. It lived in how men approached power, how women approached the altar, and how the court approached every rumor of intimacy. Catherine Parr, still queen at his side, understood this more clearly than most. She had survived where others had not, because she treated marriage as navigation rather than refuge. She nursed Henry, counseled him, even debated theology with him. But always within the grammar the system recognized. Submission in public, deference in council, piety framed as loyalty. When enemies tried to use her religious interests against her, she did not appeal to love. She appealed to utility, assuring Henry that their conversations only distracted him from pain and sharpened his judgment. He accepted her explanation because it fit the structure. A queen who kept the king obedient to his own logic could live. Around the royal couple, bureaucracy prepared for transition with the same calm precision it had applied to queens. Clerks finalized Henry's will, adjusting clauses that arranged the succession. Edward first, then Mary, then Elizabeth. Each child carried the memory of a different queen. But in the document, they appeared not as remnants of love, but as ordered names in a line of inheritance. Executors were appointed. Seals were distributed. Instructions for Edward's minority government were set down in careful prose. The man whose marriages had shaken Europe left behind a plan written in the same cool language that had condemned wives and elevated others. Law, by this stage, did not need spectacle to show its strength. The treason acts, the acts of succession, the royal supremacial, remained in place as Henry's breath shortened. There was no move to repeal them at his bedside, no gesture of remorse. The statutes that had made queens vulnerable did not die with their maker. They lay waiting, ready to be interpreted by new rulers, new councils, new conflicts. The idea that a king or protector could fuse personal desire with legal authority had become part of the realm's legal memory. Fear, too, had settled into a quieter form. Courtiers did not expect a sudden rage from the man fading before them. They feared instead what would follow. New factions, new favorites, new judgments drawn from old precedents. Men who had once watched Anne Boleyn or Catherine Howard go to the block now weighed their own positions under Edward's future protectors. The lesson they carried from Henry's reign was not that a single ruler could be dangerous, but that a well-organized court could turn private loyalties into public charges with little warning. To survive the next reign, they would need to read the system more carefully than they read the man. For Catherine Parr, widowhood did not end the system's hold. As Dowager Queen, she retained rank, property, and a household, but all under conditions defined by Henry's arrangements. Her later marriage to Thomas Seymour showed how little the machinery cared for sentiment. It was a love match by contemporary standards, but it unfolded in a world shaped by Henry's precedents. Suspicion of stepmothers, fear of alternative centers of loyalty, anxiety around any intimacy near the young king. What had been learned from Queen's trials under Henry became silent criteria for judging Parr's choices after him. Beneath these visible stories, unseen labor continued its work without pause. The same servants who had washed royal linens, carried secret letters, and prepared scaffolds now prepared mourning cloth, sealed coffers, and shifted their service to Edward. They did not compose theories of power. They simply moved where orders sent them. Yet their obedience carried the system forward. They ensured that the rituals of death, succession, and court life unfolded without disruption, creating the impression that the realm itself did not tremble. Spectacle managed the final transformation. Henry's body was carried with full ceremony, banners and torches lining the route, heralds proclaiming his titles, the cortege, the funeral mass. The heraldic achievements displayed above his coffin all served to rewrite memory in the language of grandeur. The public saw not a man who had lost wives to scaffold and annulment, but a king buried in the manner of a rightful sovereign. The machinery that had turned marriages into instruments of control now turned his death into proof of continuity. By the time the last prayers were spoken over his tomb, the system he built had already detached from his person. It lived in laws that defined treason as deviation from official succession. It lived in a church that answered to the crown rather than to distant Rome. It lived in counselors trained to read intimacy as potential threat, and in subjects trained to view obedience as rational self-preservation. Henry VIII's wives had died or survived within this framework, but the framework itself did not die with him. What remained then was a kingdom ruled by a child, guided by men who had watched love become a formal risk. They had seen how desire, once admitted into policy, demanded legal expression and, if necessary, legal violence. They had learned that it was not the passion that killed, but the structure that harnessed it. In the years ahead, they would act according to that lesson, even when the man who first embodied it lay silent beneath stone. In the quiet corridors of Westminster after Henry's death, Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset, assumed the role of Lord Protector. He did not dismantle the structure his brother-in-law had built. Instead, he inherited its instruments, council registers, succession statutes, marital precedents, and applied them to a boy's reign. Love remained a regulated domain, now scrutinized not by a widowed king, but by uncles and guardians who read every courtly attachment through the lens of stability. The system persisted because it had become the normal way of governance. Economy, hardened by prior dissolutions, now enforced marital discipline across estates. Somerset's enclosure policies redistributed former monastic commons, tying smallholders to gentry landlords who, in turn, policed bastardy to preserve inheritances. Wardships auctioned minors' marriages, revenues funding Edward's wars in Scotland. A noble's daughter wed by parental decree carried clauses voidable by protector warrant. Dowers secured against annulment mirrored Cleves' precedents. Parr's Seymour union, hasty post-widowhood, drew scrutiny, her jointure lands audited, lest Steve motherly influence eclipse regency control. Wealth ensured obedience. Love approved only when estates aligned. Religion, under Cranmer's guidance, deepened systemic roots without rupture. The 1549 Book of Common Prayer standardized marriage rites. vows pledging fidelity till death us apart, yet footnotes referenced royal supremacy over impediments. Sermons on Ephesians 5 husbands, as Christ's head extended to protect her as king's proxy. Heresy, axe lingered. Adultery equated with idolatry. Pulpits warning that illicit beds threatened Edward's frail health as divine judgment. Vestries logged unions, flagging pre-contracts echoing Howard's fall. Faith framed love's peril as covenant breach, obedience as sacramental duty. Bureaucracy hummed autonomous, its clerks indifferent to rulers' faces. Protectorate councils expanded visitation commissions, probing noble households for lewd company. Seymour's registers indexed Parr's letters. Her remarriage petitioned via privy, seal approved conditionally, surveillance embedded, attainders streamlined for rebels. Marital spies recycled from Cromwell's network. Depositions standardized, who slept where, when, with witnesses sworn. Paper outlasted personalities. Edward's minority tutors filed progress reports on court morals, preventing factional loves from birthing rival claims. Fear adapted seamlessly, shifting from royal temper to regency vigilance. Courtiers anticipated inquiries. Seymour's agents noted glances at masks, gifts to ladies past as ambition. Parr navigated warily, her household downsized, movements logged. Nobles petitioned alliances via council nods, silence safer than suit. The 1549 Prayer Book Rebellion saw marital oaths invoked against insurgents' wives. Fidelity to husbands mirroring subjects to protect her. Fear rationalized caution. Profess loyalty publicly, whisper privately at peril. Did antechambers echo with measured breaths? Slavery's unseen layers bore regency burdens without protest. Palace scullions scrubbed chambers where Parr quarreled with Seymour. Pages ferried interceptors between lovers' doors. Indentured wet nurses hushed Edward's cries amid council debates on his betrothal. Laundresses mended veils, stained by illicit trysts, reassigning to next union. Labour executed edicts mutely testimonies relayed from still rooms, scaffolds prepared for rebels' wives. No chains clanked louder. Routine dulled revolt, survival in shadows. Law layered precedents, unyielding. 1551 Treason Act retained Henry's clauses, extending to compassing protectors, disharrison via adulterous plots. Marriage Acts barred Levitical affinities, stricter, pre-contracts binding as Boleyn's alleged lovers. Equity courts voided unions obstructing wards. Parr's match upheld but monitored, equity balancing mercy against threat. Statutes processed intimacies as cases, love subordinate to lineage, desire to decree. Spectacle maintained rhythm, public eyes trained on continuity. Edward's 1547 coronation pageants lauded Tudor rose unbroken. Progresses showcased boyking, crowds cheering, scripted unions. Parr's remarriage, low-key, no fanfare lesson in restraint. Rebellions quelled with executions timed as moral theatre, heralds proclaiming traitors' beds as treason's seed. By 1552, Somerset fallen, Northumberland rising, pillars stood firm. Edward's health waned, yet machinery anticipated council-eyed Mary's claim warily. Her celibacy audited as dynastic pause, love channeled through wards, alliances vetted. System exhausted no single pillar, but collective strain showed. Frail heir, empty treasuries, precedents piling, friction gathered, inevitable as tide. In 1553, as Edward VI's cough echoed through the Privy Chamber at Whitehall, John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland, gathered his councillors around a flickering taper. The boy king, pale and resolute, signed a devise altering Henry's will, bypassing Mary and Elizabeth for Lady Jane Grey, Northumberland's daughter. Jane's marriage to Guildford Dudley, arranged months prior, now served as dynastic fulcrum. No blade touched her neck yet. Instead, the system processed her elevation through proclamation, heralds, and oaths. Love entered as contract. Grey wed Dudley to bind Protestant continuity, her reluctance noted but overridden by wardship clauses. The machinery turned, indifferent to youth or tears. System exhaustion began not in fury, but in quiet overload. Pillars, once synergistic, now ground against each other. Law strained by fraudulent devices. Economy depleted by endless wars. Monastic gains squandered on French campaigns. Gentry, land rich but cash poor, hoarded estates against rising taxes. Wardship auctions yielded less noble daughters wed defensively, jointures inflated to deter annulment. Northumberland's manoeuvres exposed the flaw. Wealth concentrated in few hands bred resentment, not loyalty. Love's ledger unbalanced. Grey's union, meant to secure revenue streams, instead drained coffers for coronation pomp. Friction accumulated, predictable as debt. Law faltered under its own weight. Precedents clashing. Edward's devise invoked 1544 Succession Act, yet contradicted Henry's statutes, barring collaterals without male line. Council debated in circles Mary's legitimacy, upheld by prior oaths. Jane's by proxy marriage voids, echoing Cleves. Treason proclamations flew by directional. Northumberland's attainder drafted preemptively. Marriage law, rigid with Levitical bars, now bent for expedience. Grey's pre-contract ignored. Dudley's kin exempted. Equity courts clogged with petitions. Justices, once enforcers, now evaded rulings lest branded traitors. Statutes piled, unyielding yet undermined love's peril normalized, but machinery jammed on interpretation. Religion, once unified bulwark, fractured into exhaustion. Cranmer's 1552 prayer book demanded wifely submission absolute. Yet Protestant zeal birthed schisms. Grey's circle preached iconoclasm, alienating conservatives. Pulpits split. Some hailed Jane's union as godly reform, others whispered Mary's Catholic vows as truer covenant. Supremacy oath, sworn 9 times under Henry, now contested bishops like Ridley-backed devise. Bonner awaited winds. Heresy burnings paused amid chaos. Adultery sermons rang hollow when Northumberland's own kin embodied ambition. Faith wearied, doctrines recycled without conviction, aligning less to heaven than survival. Bureaucracy bloated, its registers overwhelmed. Council minutes, double daily audits of Grey's household. Loyalty oaths logged for 200 souls. Scribes copied attainders round the clock. Privy Seal warrants for arrests outpaced seals. Informers flooded inmates deposing on Jane's wedding night reluctance. Grooms charting Northumberland's troop movements. Paper-choked channels. Precedents from Boleyn to Howard invoked futilely against Mary's rising banners. Clerks fatigued. Errors crept, dates mismatched. Witnesses duplicated. Machinery slowed, not from malice, but volume. Fear diffused into paralysis, no longer sharp instrument. Courtiers pledged to Jane by dawn, Mary by dusk. Nobles dispatched dual gifts, hedging bets. Grey navigated numbly, her marriage a cipher love, absent, duty depleted. Crowds in London cheered proclamation tepidly, sensing fatigue. Revolt brewed not in rage, but resignation. Gentry withheld taxes, justices delayed summons. Fear, once efficient, now paralyzed deciders. Northumberland hesitated on Mary's arrest. Council fractured. Obedience eroded quietly, rational calculus yielding to wait-and-see. Unseen labor mirrored decay, bound hands faltering under strain. Palace servants, stretched by dual courts, relayed conflicting orders pages, tore proclamations, mid-delivery. Laundresses burned Greys, veils preemptively. Indentured cooks poisoned no wells, but spoiled feasts through neglect. Wet nurses abandoned posts for Mary's camps. Labor, empires, spine, slackened scaffolds, half erected, linens unwashed. No uprising, mere exhaustion, routine unraveling into neglect. Spectacle dimmed, rituals rote. Jane's 9-day queenship paraded lackluster tower, entry sands, pageants, crowds murmuring. Northumberland's troops marched without fervor. Mary's Norfolk arrival drew genuine cries. Executions loomed, procedural Dudley beheaded sans drama, Grey's block delayed by paperwork. By July's end, pillars sagged, collective economy starved, law looped, religion splintered. Jane yielded tower meekly, system pausing, not collapsing. Exhaustion inevitable, overbuilt for one king's desires, it fatigued under succession's test. Did ledgers whisper the toll? In July 1553, Mary Tudor entered London not as triumphant warrior, but as administrative necessity. Her banners rose over Paul's steeple. Councillors knelt in sequence, their oaths shifting from Jane Grey's proxy to the elder sister's legitimate claim. No armies clashed in streets. The system that elevated then discarded queens processed. Mary's restoration through quiet reversals, proclamations rescinded. Attainders burned, Grey's marriage nullified as wardship overreach. Northumberland met the block in measured ceremony, his head falling without crowd fervour. Mary's first acts were not vengeance, but paperwork. Pardons issued, revenues reclaimed, the machinery realigned under female hand. Downfall arrived not as thunder, but as ledger correction. Pillars, strained by Edward's minority, yielded to procedural logic. Law led quietly. Mary's legitimacy invoked 1544 statutes. Jane's devise ruled fraudulent sans trial. Attainder reversals standardized. Dudley's attainted. Estates inventoried per Cromwell precedents. Marriage law bent domestically. Mary's betrothal inquiries vetted via council. Philip of Spain's suit drafted as treaty appendix. No scaffolds for rivals. Equity tempered treason. Pardons rationed as administrative mercy. Statutes persisted, but interpreted through restorations. Lens love's peril subdued to reconciliation. Bureaucracy orchestrated the turn, its clerks impartial to crowns. Registers reopened Henry's originals. Privy Council minutes logged Mary's household audits. 300 souls resworn. Polls, legatine powers, recalled papal forms, but supremacy oath intact. Marital spies redeployed to sniff Catholic plots. Warrants flowed, measured. Northumberland's execution warrant, single page. Grey's deferred to house arrest. Paper ensured seamlessness. Precedents from Boleyn recycled as cautionary, not binding. Fall, administrative. Sign, seal, dispatch. Religion guided symbolic restoration. Crosses reinstated without crusade. Mary's 1554 reconciliation with Rome annulled schisms. Procedurally parliamentary repeal of supremacy. Yet Crown retained temporal headship. Marriage sermons reverted to pre-Reformation vows. Permanence emphasized over dissolubility. Pulpits hailed Mary's virginity as Tudor continuity. Philip's union framed as alliance sacrament. Heresy recriminalized. Calmly Woodman burned at Smithfield. Routine as Boleyn's sword. Faith realigned heaven to Whitehall. Love's theology chastened to obedience. Fear softened to vigilance. No longer regency panic. Courtiers pledged anew. Gifts to Mary's chamberlain, securing silence. Elizabeth navigated warily. Her household audited movements, logged fear. Rational, not rampant. Nobles hosted progresses cautiously. Feasts scripted sans masks. Mary's Spanish match stirred murmurs, but council preempted via oaths. Obedience normalized. Grey's kin pardoned conditionally. Lesson in timely submission. Economy stabilized via quiet extraction. Monastic reversals, partial lands, retained by gentry. Fines from rebels funding, Calais. Mary's jointure clauses for Philip secured English wall. Wardships auctioned miners' unions profitably. Love monetized, subdued. Grey's jewels reclaimed, no auctions. Treasuries refilled methodically. Pillars lubricated. Unseen labor resumed rhythm. Pages ferrying pardons. Laundresses washing execution cloths for storage. Indentured cooks prepared Mary's simple board. Wet nurses hushed royal bastards. Routine unbroken scaffolds dismantled. Veils mended for Philip's proxy. Spectacles subdued. Processions heraldic, not extravagant. Mary's 1553 entry pageants lauded legitimacy. Philip's 1554 landing low-key, no Howard pomp. Executions calendared sparingly. Crowds trained to hush. Mary ruled till 1558. System intact, yet quieter. Pillars functional. Love channeled through treaties. Philip departed, no heir. Phantoms stirred in wombs unquickened. Administrative quietude masked symbolic hollow. Tudor line thinned. Machinery awaited next hand. In November 1558, fog cloaked the tower's battlements as Mary's physicians withdrew from her bedside, their faces drawn, their reports sealed for council eyes. The Queen, who had restored Rome's authority, lay spent. Her body hollowed by losses. False pregnancies recorded in privy ledgers. Spanish alliances unfruitful. Her realm scarred by burnings, tallied at 280 souls. No dramatic last words echoed. Servants straightened linens. Heralds prepared shifts. Councillors gathered to proclaim Elizabeth without pause. Mary's death marked no system's end. The pillars Henry forged endured, processing one queen's exit as another's measured entry. Aftermath unfolded administratively, pillars reassuming their quiet vigil. Law persisted, unamended. Henry's treason acts shelved, but intact. Supremacy reasserted, via 1559 Act of Uniformity, marriage impediments codified afresh. Elizabeth's accession invoked 1544 statutes selectively. Mary's pardons unravelled for Catholics, attainders recycled against plotters. Marital precedents loomed, no husband's suit without council scrutiny, pre-contracts binding as Howard's ghosts. Equity courts balanced caution loves, unions vetted, bastardy fined per poor laws. Statutes outlived Tudor wombs. Obedience rationalized as statutory shield. Bureaucracy hummed unchanged, registers bridging reigns seamlessly. Cecil's state papers indexed Mary's Spanish treaties for annulment clauses. Privy Council audits logged Elizabeth's household, 400 souls sworn afresh. Warrants flowed routine. Polls legatine seals melted. Visitation commissions probing parishes for illicit beds. Informers redeployed maids, deposing on noble trysts. Grooms charting progresses. Paper immortalized continuity. Bullions depositions cited in plots against Virgin Queen. Machinery indifferent, sign for Mary, seal for Elizabeth. Religion recalibrated without zeal's heat. Cranmer's forms revived tempered. 1559 injunctions mandated marriage registers uniform. Sermons on wifely submission echoing Ephesians sans popish permanence. Pulpits framed Elizabeth's celibacy as providential love deferred to realm's service. Heirs distant as Mary's phantoms. Bishops like Jewel enforced fire articles. Heresy muted to sedition. Faith reflective. Heaven aligned to crown. Intimacy chastened to covenant duty. No schism rent pillars. Doctrine adapted. Obedience eternal. Economies stabilized in gentry hands. Monastic lands entrenched thirds retained. Wardships auctioning miners' matches profitably. Elizabeth's progresses taxed hospitality. Fines from rebels funding navy. Jointure's modest love monetized via dowers. Reclaiming estates on nullity. Treasuries methodical. Grey's remnants auctioned quietly. Norfolk's Howard echoes find. Fear settled as ambient protocol. Courtiers attuned to signals. Elizabeth navigated kin warily Mary's phantoms in Catholic whispers. Progresses doubling loyalty tours. Nobles petitioned alliances via Cecil nods. Silence golden. Plots like Ridolfi logged marital spies. Obedience normalized. Peril procedural. Unseen labor mirrored persistence. Pages ferrying proclamations. Laundresses storing Mary's veils for archives. Indentured cooks shifted menus seamlessly. Wet nurses hushed royal wards. Routine, unbroken scaffolds, reserved for traitors. Linens, mended eternally. Spectacle subdued to ritual. Elizabeth's 1558 entry pageants, lauding virginity as Tudor seal. Coronations abbreviated. Progresses scripted sans masks. Executions sparse. Heralds proclaiming plots beds as treason seed. System remained post-Henry. Pillars autonomous. Mary's burnings filed. Elizabeth's plots, indexed love. Processed through laws. Civ, desire, through decrees. Ledger. Queens rose, fell, yielded to procedure. Machinery breathed on, indifferent to names. Obedience, rational, peril, normalized. Continuity etched in parchment. In the shadowed scriptoriums, where clerks unrolled parchments long after Tudor banners faded, a pattern emerged not from one king's temper, but from the habits rulers imposed on flesh and vow. Authority discovered that intimacy left unchecked. Bred rival claims sons from second beds. Alliances from unguarded glances. Loyalties splintered by private altars. Systems arose to contain it. Laws naming deviation as treason. Bureaucracies logging every whisper. Economies tying dowers to dynastic ledgers. Love did not vanish. It submitted to audit. Its freedoms traded for the illusion of order. This logic traveled beyond England's shores, embedding in councils from Madrid to Moscow. Rulers learned Henry's lesson without his scaffolds. Monitor marriages as state assets. Classify affection by utility. Process failure through attainder or exile. Noble houses catalogued betrothals like inventories. Clergy preached submission as universal ordinance. Ephesians recited from Baltic to Bosphorus. Wardships auctioned heirs, unions, turning children into fiscal bridges. Fear settled as custom courtiers internalized surveillance, whispers self-censored before lips parted. Obedience ceased being coerced. It became rational, The cost of estates intact, bloodlines pure. Psychologically, men in power absorbed the imperative. Heirs secured continuity. Vulnerability invited revolt. Childhoods steeped in civil scars yielded adults who viewed bedchambers as frontiers' wives, inspected as alliances. Pregnancies audited as providence. Cultural tides reinforced. Medieval oaths bound matrimony to fealty. Renaissance treatises framed kingship as cosmic headship over hearths. Symbolically, crowns mirrored domestic thrones, husband as sovereign, wife as subject, realm as enlarged household. What began as personal caution hardened into procedure, rationalized as preservation. Economically, the pattern proved efficient. Lands granted post-dissolution demanded marital vigilance. Gentry enforced Levitical bars to safeguard inheritances, fines from bastards funding armories. Unseen labor sustained it, maids relaying pillow confessions, scribes indexing pre-contracts, grooms charting progresses for illicit pairs. Religion sanctified the cage. Pulpits equated wifely fidelity with covenant loyalty, adultery with cosmic breach. Spectacles sealed the rhythm, weddings paraded as national vows, falls as moral theater. Exhaustion followed inevitably, not from excess, but extension. Pillars overloaded, laws looped in precedent wars, treasuries strained by wardship bids, fears diffused into paralysis. Systems birthed from one desire, fatigued under collective weight, factions hedged oaths. Nobles delayed alliances, laborers slackened routines. Downfalls came administrative, devises fraudulent, councils realigned, thrones passed via ledger, correction, rulers fell. Machinery persisted, processing intimacies as before. Yet the deepest truth endured. Humans, granted powers, proximity, repeat the architecture. They classify love by lineage, desire by decree, obedience as survival's calculus. Courts evolve, but scrutiny remains, whispers intercepted, unions vetted, beds as potential thrones. Rationality demands it. Unchecked affection fractures hierarchies built on blood. Societies whisper of freedom, yet file affections under fealty. The pattern whispers back. What secures one generation endangers the next unless harnessed. Fear, once sharp, becomes climate. Courtiers anticipate inquiries. Nobles petition alliances conditionally. Bureaucracy outlives names. Registers span reigns. Precedents compound eternally. Religion adapts doctrines without altering essence. Submission eternal. Heaven mirroring Whitehall. Economy monetizes restraint. Jointures conditional. Estates reclaimed on nullity. Spectacle trains eyes. Elevations cheered. Descents hushed. In antechambers across eras, the question lingers unspoken. When authority fuses private desire to public law, does peril reside in passion or in the structure that processes it? Society's answer, through continuity, obeyed the form, evade the fault. Love persists, but whispers. Systems ensure it. This was Henry's inheritance, not to sons alone, but to governance itself. Desire, systematized, endures. Thrones rotate, pillars stand.